I, 31 male, work as a commercial project manager, and until about a month ago, I was engaged to my fiancée, 28 female. She is a regional sales director for a medical supply company. We had been together for 3 years and engaged for 8 months. We lived in a house I purchased solely under my name 2 years before I even met her. Because of my line of work, I'm pretty meticulous about documentation and security. When I built the house, I installed a high-end, cloud-backed security system with cameras covering the main living areas, the driveway, and the porches. Keep that in mind because it becomes very relevant later. It was a Tuesday morning. I was in the bedroom tying my shoes, getting ready to head to a construction site. My fiancée was standing by her vanity, doing her final makeup checks before leaving for her office. I glanced over and noticed the velvet ring box sitting open on the counter. Inside was the custom-cut diamond ring I had spent 6 months saving for. She was slipping into her trench coat, clearly about to walk out the door. I pointed out that she forgot her ring. She paused, adjusted her collar, and didn't even look at me in the mirror. She casually mentioned that she leaves it at home on purpose now. She told me flat out that she wasn't wearing her engagement ring to work because men treat her better when they think she's single. She claimed it made networking easier and, honestly, helped with her sales quotas. I stopped tying my shoe and just looked at her, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. She grabbed her briefcase, completely unbothered, as if she had just told me she was switching to decaf coffee. I told her that was an interesting strategy. She smiled, gave me a quick peck on the cheek, and walked out. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. I didn't yell or chase her down the driveway. I just processed the absolute sheer entitlement of what she just said. She was actively leveraging her perceived availability to manipulate male clients, and she expected me to just underwrite this behavior because it benefited her career. It was a massive, glaring neon sign pointing to her true character. I walked over to the vanity and looked at the ring. Then I looked down at the tungsten band I had been wearing on my right hand. It was a placeholder engagement band she had bought me because I liked the symbolism. I took it off. I dropped it into the velvet box right next to her diamond. I took the box into my home office, put it in my heavy-duty floor safe, and locked it. I knew she wouldn't notice it was missing from the vanity because she never wore it during the week anyway. For the next 3 days, I lived my life exactly as she had suggested. I was single. I didn't make her dinner. I didn't ask about her day. I called our venue and canceled the large catering deposit check I was supposed to mail that Wednesday. When I went out with my friends on Thursday night, I didn't text her updates. I just existed as an unattached man. Friday evening, she came home with a bottle of wine, looking to celebrate the end of the week. She sat on the kitchen island and started talking about a huge account she had just closed. She poured 2 glasses and handed one to me. That's when she finally looked at my hands. Her sentence completely stopped. Her eyes darted from my bare hand to my face, and she demanded to know where my ring was. I took a sip of the wine and told her it was in the safe. Her tone immediately shifted from celebratory to accusatory, asking me why. I looked her dead in the eye and said I stopped wearing mine because I was following her lead. I told her I was just single now. The silence in the kitchen was incredibly heavy. Her voice started rising as she asked what I was talking about. I reminded her of her little strategy. I told her she admitted to pretending to be single to get what she wants from men, and I decided I didn't want to be married to a woman who uses her relationship status as a negotiable business asset. I told her the wedding was off. I had canceled the catering deposit, and we were done. The explosion was immediate. My fiancée threw her wine glass into the sink, shattering it. She started screaming about how I was insecure, how I was overreacting to a simple business tactic, and how I was ruining our lives over my fragile ego. She stepped right into my space, yelling that I had no idea how hard it is for a woman in corporate sales. I replied that she had no idea how easy it was for me to cancel a wedding. I told her I wasn't debating this, the relationship was over, and she needed to start looking for a new place to live. She let out a harsh laugh. She told me she wasn't going anywhere, that this was her home, and I couldn't just throw her out because I threw a tantrum. I calmly reminded her that my name is the only one on the deed and the mortgage, and she had 30 days to vacate. To avoid escalating things further, I went to the guest bedroom and locked the door. I assumed she would calm down, realize the reality of the situation, and we would handle the logistics like adults. I was severely mistaken. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of multiple voices in the kitchen. I walked out to find her mother sitting at my dining table, drinking coffee out of my favorite mug. My fiancé sat next to her, looking incredibly smug. Her mother stood up the moment she saw me. Without even a greeting, she told me I was acting like a petulant child. She lectured me about how her daughter is a successful woman and how I should be supporting her career, not punishing her for being smart. She demanded that I apologize, reinstate the catering deposit, and fix the situation. I asked her what would happen if I didn't. Her mother warned me that I would find out how difficult they could make my life. I looked at my fiancé. She was smiling. They genuinely believed they could bully me into a marriage. I told her mother to leave my property immediately before I called the police for trespassing. They left, but as my fiancé walked past me, she whispered that I was going to regret this. 2 days later, on Monday evening, I found out exactly what she meant. I pulled into my driveway after work to find 2 police cruisers parked out front. I walked up to my door, and an officer stepped forward, holding a stack of papers. He asked if I was the homeowner, and when I confirmed, he handed me the documents. He informed me that I was being served with an ex parte temporary restraining order. My fiancée had filed it that afternoon. She claimed I had thrown objects at her, made violent threats against her life, and that she feared for her safety. By law, I was required to vacate the premises immediately pending a court hearing. I had 10 minutes to pack a bag. I stood there on my porch, reading the document. Under penalty of perjury, she had written a completely fabricated story about me throwing plates at her and threatening to physically assault her if she didn't move out. She was using the legal system designed to protect actual victims just to steal my house and force my hand. She wanted to create a legal nightmare, so I would settle, give her money, or simply back down. I didn't argue with the police. I went inside and packed a suitcase, while my fiancé watched me from the top of the stairs with a triumphant smirk. I left my own house and checked into an extended stay hotel. I didn't call her. Instead, I called the most aggressive property and civil litigation lawyer I could find in the county. Ex parte temporary restraining orders are notoriously easy to get in my state because the judge only hears the petitioner's side of the story. The actual hearing to determine if the order becomes permanent was scheduled for 14 days later. For 2 weeks, I lived out of a suitcase while she lived in my custom-built home. During that time, my lawyer and I got to work. My fiancé had made one catastrophic miscalculation. Because I never actively checked the security cameras in front of her, she assumed they were just dummy cameras or that I didn't know how to use them. From my hotel room, I logged into the cloud server. I pulled the footage from the exact date and time she claimed I had thrown plates and threatened her life. The video was crystal clear. It showed me sitting silently on the sofa with my laptop. It showed her pacing the room, screaming at me. It captured the exact moment she picked up a decorative ceramic bowl from the entryway table and hurled it at the wall, shattering it. The audio caught her screaming that she would ruin me before she let me kick her out of the house. I never raised my voice. I simply stood up, closed my laptop, and walked into the guest room. I sent the files directly to my lawyer. The day of the hearing arrived. I walked into the courtroom. My fiancée was sitting at the petitioner's table with her lawyer. She had dressed down, wearing minimal makeup, trying to look meek and intimidated. Her lawyer presented her case, repeating the lies from the affidavit. When it was our turn, my lawyer didn't call character witnesses. He simply introduced the time-stamped video and audio footage into evidence and played it for the judge. The color drained from my fiancé's face as her own voice echoed through the courtroom, screaming threats while I sat calmly. The judge stared at her for a long, uncomfortable moment. He stated that not only was he dismissing the petition immediately, but he was referring the matter to the district attorney's office for potential perjury charges. He told her she had abused the court's time and mocked the protections designed for actual victims of domestic violence. The moment the gavel fell, my lawyer walked over to her table. He handed her a manila envelope. She asked what it was, her voice shaking. My lawyer loudly explained that it was a formal, legally binding 30-day notice to quit. Her tenancy was officially being terminated. Because the TRO was dismissed, I had the immediate legal right to return to my home. However, because she was technically still a legal tenant for another 30 days, I requested a civil standby from the local police department to escort me inside to secure my important documents and valuables. I wasn't going to spend another night in a hotel, but I also wasn't going to leave my things unprotected. I arrived at the house with the police escort. My fiancé wasn't there yet. I went straight to my home office. The door frame was splintered. Someone had forced it open. I walked in and looked at the floor safe. The lock mechanism had been entirely drilled out. The heavy metal door was swung open. The velvet box and the $8,000 engagement ring inside it were completely gone. During the 2 weeks I was legally barred from my own home, she had hired a locksmith under false pretenses to crack my safe. I took out my phone and texted her right in front of the officers. "Where's the ring?" Her reply came 3 minutes later. "Consider it my severance package for wasting my 20s. Sell the house if you want it back. I'm hiring a real lawyer now." I showed the text to the officers to file a police report, and then I forwarded the screenshot to my lawyer. In my state, an engagement ring is legally classified as a conditional gift. The condition is the marriage. If the marriage does not occur, regardless of who breaks it off, the ring belongs to the purchaser. By breaking into my safe and taking it after the relationship ended, she hadn't just kept a gift. She had committed conversion and theft. We immediately filed a civil lawsuit against her for replevin, which is the legal term for the return of stolen property, and conversion. We sought the ring's immediate return, or its full $8,000 value, plus the cost of repairing the damaged safe, the damaged office door, the damaged wall from her throwing the bowl, and all of my attorney's fees. But her entitlement wasn't finished. Desperate to maintain control and punish me for fighting back, she tried one last dirty trick. She sent an email from her corporate work account to the HR director at my commercial development company. She claimed she was a victim of my abuse, attached the initial dismissed TRO petition, conveniently leaving out the part where it was dismissed for perjury, and demanded my company take action against me to protect women. My HR director, knowing my character and sensing something was off, forwarded the email to me privately. I immediately forwarded it to my lawyer. We amended the civil lawsuit that same day. We added a count of defamation per SC. Because she alleged criminal conduct that could impact my professional standing, we didn't even have to prove financial damages. The malice was glaringly evident. To prove she sent it maliciously during work hours, my lawyer subpoenaed her company's email server records. That subpoena landed directly on the desk of her company's general counsel. Suddenly, her whole networking strategy didn't matter. Her company discovered she was using corporate email to conduct a personal, malicious legal harassment campaign, and that she was currently facing a lawsuit for defamation and conversion. The medical supply company placed her on immediate, unpaid administrative leave pending an internal investigation. She packed her things and moved in with her mother 3 days later, long before the 30-day eviction notice was even up. The climax of all this came during a court-ordered mediation a month later. She sat across from me at the large conference table, completely deflated. The smugness was entirely gone. Her expensive new lawyer had clearly explained to her how utterly destroyed she was about to be in a public courtroom if this went to trial. She had no job. She was living with her mother. She had an eviction filing on her public record. And she was still facing potential perjury investigations. We handed over our final settlement demands. She didn't argue. She reached into her designer purse, pulled out the velvet box, and slid it across the table. I opened it to verify the ring was inside, then closed it. She agreed to pay $12,000 out of her savings to cover the damages to my house, the safe, and my legal fees. Most importantly, she signed a legally binding non-disparagement agreement, preventing her from ever speaking my name to my employer, friends, or family again under penalty of massive financial damages. I signed the final paperwork, picked up the ring box, and stood up. I didn't say a single word to her. I walked out of the mediation center, drove to my intact, quiet house, and poured myself a drink. Standing up for yourself isn't always easy. Sometimes the people you think you know will try to burn your entire world down just to avoid admitting they were wrong, or to get things entirely their way. But the peace I have now in my quiet, thoroughly secured home is worth every single dollar of those lawyer fees and every moment of stress. I dodged a bullet, and she learned exactly what happens when you try to weaponize the law against someone who keeps the receipts. If you want more stories about dodging red flags the size of artillery shells and watching entitlement get checked by reality, hit subscribe before your partner decides to take off their ring for networking purposes.